Perfect.
Hey, what's going on everybody? Welcome back to the channel. My name's JBO. If you didn't know already, this is my 1992 Toyota MR2 and this is the 2 litre 3S GTE that we pulled out of it last week. So where I left off in the last episode was taking off the intake manifold and the exhaust manifold on this engine. And in today's episode I think I'm probably going to start getting deeper into the engine teardown. I'll probably get under the timing cover and start removing some of the coolant lines and the water pump and things like that. I'll just quickly show you what I've done since the last episode. So I've gone ahead and I've started cleaning up the aluminum around the head here. I sprayed a lot of degreaser and stuff around the exhaust ports on this side. Got most of the gunk out, didn't clean it all off though, however. I also did the same on the intake manifold side there, so it's a lot cleaner and easier to work on. I've also gone ahead and taken off all sort of the excess coolant lines that were still attached, the fuel lines. I've taken off the fuel rail down there, and I've taken off the coolant housing and coolant tree that normally sits here. And today, with taking off the timing cover, I should be able to get at the water pump, which will allow me to remove this whole assembly here, and in turn let me remove these coolant lines as well. I can remove these without taking the water pump off, but I just don't want to do it all in one go. And removing these coolant lines and stuff will make it easier for me to remove this hose here and this hose under here. So those are the two coolant bypass hoses, and they're aptly named the hose from hell and the hose from hell on earth. And the reason for that is because both these hoses are so difficult to sort of change and swap out when the engine is still in the car. This normally sits under the exhaust manifold and the turbo and the downpipe, which sits right here. And these are quite a high maintenance sort of item to change, so it's always best to do it when you can. And right now, because the engine's out, I think I'll change those out as well. Taking these out will give me better access to removing the oil cooler, which I'm going to clean up as well. A lot of these parts I'm going to clean up and paint, like these coolant hard lines here and the thermostat housing, because the new water pump will be a nice shiny aluminium colour, and I want this to sort of mimic that as well. I've also gone ahead and removed the crank bolt, which is a big 19mm bolt which I took off using a power bar and this big metal pipe you see behind me here. It didn't come off too easily, but I locked up the flywheel with 2 bolts and a spanner in between and locked it against the engine stand so it wouldn't move. I've also gone ahead and pulled off the crank pulley just prematurely so it's a bit easier to remove for the video, and I've already taken out some of the timing cover bolts up here. So we'll get into it and we'll see what it looks like under here.
Perfect.
Cool, so I don't know how well you can see, but we've gone and got the timing covers off, and as you can probably tell, it's a bit of a mess under here. It looks like the cam seals behind these cams have been leaking, and there's a lot of oil buildup and stuff around the oil pump area, which is this section down here. This is the oil pump pulley, and this has a weird shaped O-ring inside of it, as well as a oil pump shaft seal, and that's pretty common to sort of deteriorate and crack, and that's a lot of the main reason all this oil buildup occurs. Behind this crank bolt here is also the front main seal, which is also probably leaking, and that coupled with the oil pump and sort of the turning of the engine's thrown oil all the way up the side of the engine. But in our gasket kit I've got new seals for the oil pump. I've got a brand new water pump to go here. I've also got a new tensioner and 2 new idler pulleys to go here. I will be going through and pulling all the stuff off, giving it a clean, and then sort of periodically going to start replacing it. I will be removing the head of the engine probably in the next episode, but I'll probably leave the cams on there and do the cam seals and stuff once the head's back on the engine. So I'm probably going to start by just loosening the tensioner, which looks to be 2 12mm bolts here, as well as the idler pulleys, which are 2 14mm bolts here. That should allow us to remove the belt, and then we can take a better look at all the components and stuff that are under here. So I'm probably just going to start by removing the tensioner, which looks to be 2 12 mil bolts there, as well as the 2 idler pulleys, which is 2 14 mil bolts as well. This will allow me to take the timing belt off, and then I can get a better look at what's going on under here and where to go to from next. After that, I'll probably remove the upper timing cover, which is the one behind the cams there. Then I can start pulling off the crank bolt, and then could probably get into start cleaning some of this stuff up. So I've actually gone and taken the cams off here, as you can see. The cam sort of shaft has this dowel in the middle, and there's 2 holes on either side of the dowel, which line up to those 3 holes. I don't know if you can see it, there's 3 holes on the cam gear there. Basically this means that you can't really stuff up the orientation of putting the cam gear on, and it sort of puts it right in the center so that the bolt goes on evenly. But now that the cam gears are off, I can go around and undo all the 10 mils, remove the upper timing cover, and I'll probably get started cleaning up some of this engine, and I'll show you what it looks like afterwards. So it's actually the next day. Just a bit of an update after where I left off yesterday. I went ahead and took off the upper timing cover up here, and I went ahead and cleaned up some of the aluminum on this head, cleaned up the block behind some of the tensioners and pulleys behind here. Next up, I'm probably going to go ahead and remove the water pump and the coolant lines down the side there. I've already gone ahead and removed one of the coolant bypass lines, the hose from hell, on this side of the oil cooler. After that, I'll probably go ahead and take off the oil pump just to see what it looks like under there, get that cleaned up, and then I'll decide where to go to from there. So let's get into it. Cool, so that was probably a bit of a longer time lapse, but I did have a lot of stuff that I needed to take off the engine. I did finally manage to get down to removing the oil pump. I did have to take the sump, the oil pickup and the baffling and stuff off as well, but I'll just show you what I've done. Cool, so here you can see that this is where the oil pump's sat. It sits against the block with like a papery sort of gasket right there. And what that does is the belt sort of turns the pulley on this side here, which pulls the oil up from the sump down here. And what it does is it feeds high pressure oil through this oil gallery here, and that makes its way around the block to the rods and the pistons and things like that. So I'll just go ahead and show you what the back of the oil pump actually looks like. This is the backing face of the oil pump, and as you can see there's the papery sort of gasket here. Under here is the oil pump rotor, which I will have to take off to change an O-ring in here. There's sort of 3 main O-rings that need to be changed in this. There's the oil pump shaft seal, which is under here, the main O-ring which sits around here, and the front main seal, which is just in there. I can just pop that out and put the new one in. This over here is what the 3S GTE oil pump pickup and sort of baffle plate looks like. It doesn't take much to remove, it's just a couple of bolts, but as you can see there, it's got sort of like a meshy filter there, and that helps to stop any sort of debris or any bigger bits in the oil getting up into the oil pump and the engine. And here we've got the factory water pump here, which connects up to these coolant lines that go around the side of the block. This is the oil cooler and oil cooler mounting plate, which I've taken off. This line here is where the hose from hell sort of sticks on, and that's it there. It kind of got a bit destroyed when I was taking it off. And this is the hose from hell on earth. So those two there will be getting replaced, and these hoses link up to these coolant lines that go around the block. So now that everything has pretty much been taken off the block of the engine, I can get around to actually starting to clean up some of these parts, putting new gaskets and stuff in them, and then reinstalling them back on the engine. Apologies if this was a bit of a boring sort of episode. the engine teardown does require a bit of work. It could all be done in one sitting, I guess, but I just sort of wanted to take my time with it and do it right. I can now clean up the front of the engine here, get all the oil out, clean up the surfaces, put everything back on. I'll probably get around to doing the lower half of the engine on the block, and I'll leave the head till last because that's still got to come off to install some new head studs and a new head gasket. And I'll probably cover most of the reinstallation of this stuff in a later episode. Again, sorry if this was a bit of a boring one. I promise that there'll be some better stuff coming along in the next few episodes, but let me know what you guys thought about the video. Let me know what I can do to improve as well. I just want to make some good content for you guys. But as always, thanks for watching. I hope you guys enjoyed it, and I'll see you guys next time.